Chaos in Northern California as a violent bank robbery ends in a barrage of gunfire, leaving one bank customer and two suspects dead. The events unfolded as three heavily armed men entered a bank, tied up a security guard, and took three women hostage before taking off in a stolen SUV with the police in hot pursuit.
Ram him if you need to stop him, or hit him or something. If you can stop him, stop him.
The suspects had huge amounts of ammunition on them, according to police, who said the men had firearm magazines strapped to their bodies and fired on the officers relentlessly.
There's a guy, number 2 male, sitting out the back window. He's shooting at us with a rifle. Taking fire. We are taking fire.
When the issue turns to local law enforcement, one issue is obvious. The criminals are becoming better armed. Everything from military-style issue body armor to multiple-round magazines, and even the type of weaponry once limited to the battlefield. Recently, a number of local law enforcement agencies have taken to better arming themselves for the fight, and there's been some public pushback, most of the time coming from those who don't have to put their life on the line in a critical situation. Local cops are determined to protect and to serve, and to do that, they need to be better armed than the bad guys. Let's welcome into MidPoint the Sheriff of Palm Beach County, Florida, with more than 40 years in law enforcement. Rick Bradshaw joins us in studio. Sheriff, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Is it not fair to say, though, that in order to survive with what is being thrown at you by the criminals today, you can't control what they're getting, so you either have to be better prepared or there's a good chance that you're going to be the one going to the morgue?
Absolutely. And I like what you say. We should not be at a disadvantage. We have to be even, my opinion is, better than what the bad guys are, because the deputies don't get paid to walk out their door at night and never see their family again. They're expected to come back, and the public is expected to get the best protection that they can get. And in order for them to get that protection, we need to have the equipment necessary to do that.
Is that what sometimes the critics are missing? The public is involved in this as well. As we just saw in California, there was a hostage taken, and it was an innocent victim who died simply because the firepower that was involved here and the planning. We're not talking about just a couple of kids on a routine snatch and grab anymore. When they're now 14, 15, 16 even, the gangs are well organized and they're well armed.
Absolutely. And you know, when you call for a deputy, you expect that deputy to show up to be the best trained, best equipped, most intelligent, and ready to go give you the best service possible. So I like this at budget time. They say, Sheriff, you know, you need to cut this, you need to cut that. And what I say to them is, I ask you for what I need to protect the public and make sure that my men and women have the best equipment possible.
All right, now the best equipment possible. Let's get to where that is right now. The critics will say, and I even read this today as I went through and did a little more research on it, they're talking about the militarization of American streets. They're saying that we cannot tell the difference between the police and the military. The way I come from, and I will be very frank and tell you up front, I am a supporter of law enforcement and have been for many years. I don't care. You have to be prepared at all times for what's coming at you. And yeah, it is becoming a little bit more like the military, but that's just the way of the world, I think, at this point.
It's the way it is. And look what they've done in Europe. You know, America's a little bit behind the curve sometimes. We learned that when we got our butts kicked at the airports. In Europe, they were already doing good things at the airports, right? Go into an airport, look what's walking up and down the aisles there for the police. Full body armor, a helmet, an automatic weapon. You know why? Because that is what the threat is going to be if they encounter it. So I'm not going to send my deputies out there. I can tell you right now, over 4 years ago, we learned that the gangs, their weapon of choice was AK-47s. Deputy gets out the car, he's got a handgun. There's a guy standing there with a rifle. That's not a fair fight. That's not going to happen. Every one of my deputies is equipped with a 40 caliber Glock, 17 round mag capacity, a shotgun, and a fully automatic M16.
But you're going to have people who will say, that's too much firepower. You don't need this.
Well, I guarantee you, if I asked them to go out there, they'd want the best weaponry they could have. But no, you know what they do? They sit in their house real comfortable at night in the houses, and they want us to go do it. Well, if they're going to go out there and do it, they're going to get the weapons they need to protect themselves.
We've seen some video here of what the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office has. You have a lot of the drones that are available now. You have the remote-controlled items that are sitting here. How much money do you spend, and do the taxpayers of Palm Beach County, I know you're probably not going to give me an exact number, but do the taxpayers of Palm Beach County give you any grief about the amount of money being spent?
Well, once in a while, but the good side of it is a lot of those things that you've seen right there are bought with what we call law enforcement trust funds. That's the money that I take away from the bad guys when I get their cars and their houses and their cash doing drug deals, and then I use that to buy that equipment. So it's not all out of taxpayers' money. Now, on a reoccurring basis, like ammunition for training and some special type tactical weapons that we have to have, yes. But for the most part, I bought all the rifles out of law enforcement trust funds. Never cost the taxpayers a dime.
Okay, now, when you look at all this that's sitting here right now, there is a criticism. You know, it's this we do in the news. We always look at the one side and the critics, saying that you're giving the wrong idea to a lot of areas. They're saying that the African American communities now see the police department as armed military. They're saying that Hispanic communities see the police as armed military because the feeling is that most of the time they're using it in those communities. And they're looking at them and they're saying it's us against them. Look what we saw recently in New Jersey, where you have an individual who goes out and says, I'm going to go shoot a cop. He shoots and kills a young cop. The community comes in and says, he should have shot more cops. It's that us against them attitude. How do you then fight that and still be armed and be ready for what you face?
Well, there's some pockets of that. But you know what? The deputies that are out here, they're not walking around with all this stuff on them all the time. They have it to use when necessary, but that's not, they have a very soft look to them. And we do a lot of community involvement. We have a lot of special deputies that do nothing but work with the community. But the average deputy that you see out there in the street, when he gets out of the car, he's very well dressed. He's got a nice, clean uniform, very well mannered and everything. But if the situation arises, he has that available to him in his car, ready to go. It's not something he wears every day.
I have about 30 seconds left. Is it fair to say that if we look at this, we have to look at it from the standpoint that the criminal is not looking to injure your officers. The criminal most times is looking to kill your officers. Fair to say?
Absolutely. They're there to take you out so they can go do what they want to do. And what they want to do is they want to make your life and in your community miserable for you. They want to take what you have. And we're the buffer between that. We're the thin blue line between them coming into your community, taking advantage of you, taking what you have, what you've worked all your life for. We're that border. We're that line between the bad guys and your community. So you want that line as strong as it can be.
And without what you have there, sometimes you simply can't be that strong because you got to be prepared for the bad guys.
Absolutely, and we
Again,
are.
I'll tell you, I'm a supporter of law enforcement, so I like what you're doing, and I think you should continue to do it. Please outgun the bad guys whenever you can. Absolutely. Next hour here on MidPoint, we go inside the Beltway with John Gizzi and then seek to discern what, if anything, of substance John Kerry's doing in the Middle East. It's coming up right here on MidPoint, where we question everything.